Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session, 5 strategies to increase sales. Welcome to the session. We're live here, so you don't need to navigate anywhere else. We are live here. There's some weird spammy people in the comments deciding to try and navigate people elsewhere, but we are live. Please, if you see those people in the comments, just report them. That'd be great. If you're watching, do let me know where you're joining from. We're going to be talking about 5 strategies to increase sales, increase your sales. You can implement these for free. Yeah, for free. You can do them yourselves. But actually what they are is that whether you're a small business or a large enterprise, the fundamental principles of these strategies will work in any business. You might apply them to one business unit, you might apply them to the whole company, you might apply them to an individual salesperson or even a solopreneur. So I'm going to walk through them, I'm going to explain them to you today, and my goal really is that I give you these strategies that you can implement and immediately generate leads and sales. So it's something you can go away and do. Now, naturally, in a session like this, it's quite tricky to get all the information across. So if you like, we've got a resource that you can have for free. It's a book that explains and just expands a little bit on this and today. So if you want a copy of that, you can email us london@maverrik.io. So if you want to get a copy of that, you can go get it, email us in. The email's on the screen, drop an email to that address, and Simon, our MD in London, will actually drop those to you tomorrow or later today. So we're going to dig into it in a minute. We're just waiting for everybody to join because we're bang on time here today. So we'll just hang on for a couple of minutes whilst we're waiting. If you're watching on any of our social channels, please do let us know where you're joining from, both location and channel. That'll be helpful for us. So if you're on, let us know who's from the UK, who's from US. Tell us which channel you're on. That'd be great. I'm staring down the barrel of a camera from our Plymouth office today in the UK, but you might be watching from the US, you might be watching from Canada or Singapore or Dubai. Let us know where you're joining from. And I'd like to keep this session as interactive as I can, so that just in front of me I have a camera, but just there I have a feed of your comments from YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and all the other places. So if you've got questions or you go, Dean, can you expand on that? Or how would this work for us? Do put that in the comments and I will happily answer them. I'll try and do them as we go, but I'll leave some time at the end to explain. So as I said, if you need any help with this, I'll put the guide up on screen so you can see, but literally just email the address on screen and you can get a copy. There's no cost to it, it's free, and it just expands on what we're going to cover here. If you have to dip out for a call or anything, you can just email and get it and then catch up. Okay, so let's just get into these strategies straight away. What's the point? What's the point in let's cut to the chase. So what I've done in collating the strategies is I've done and do all of these myself. So these are not something that's pulled from theory. I've done these myself. They deliver and they yield results. So Lena, nice to have you join us. Please do, if you want the book, just email us directly, london@maverrik.io. Drop the emails on the screen, send an email to that address, and Simon, our MD, is going to be sending it to you. Maybe this afternoon, but it's towards the end of the day in the UK when we wrap up today. But definitely tomorrow. Brian, they're so annoying, right? Brian, they're so frustrating. I've reported them to LinkedIn many times. They make fake accounts. And actually that leads me to something. All of these strategies I'm going to show you today, they rely on human nature. So doing things that build relationship. The best kind of sales is where you can build a relationship. The best kind of sales is human to human. until the technology gets clever enough, most of what I've found is a lot of what we do in automation for sales, not marketing. I think you can do a lot of good stuff in marketing with automation, but sales automation, particularly on outreach, the problem is that a lot of the time it's not tailored enough. It's not relevant enough. Of course, I can put an image of me waving with a coffee cup with your name on it, and all we're doing is fighting for attention. These strategies, whilst they play a little bit to attention, they actually go a bit deeper than that and go, people buy from people. Yes, we can arrest attention, and there are a time and a place for that in sales, but actually the deeper thing is the relationship, because the relationship is what will grow that sales opportunity. The relationship is what people go, do I trust this company? Do I trust these people to help me? So all of these strategies are based on the principle of human to human. It's human to human that really makes a difference. Brian, great, Brian. Brian's there. Awesome. So I want to walk you through these strategies now. There's 5. I'll expand them as much as I can in the time, but again, get the book if you want it. Okay. The first one I want to talk about is hyper-personalized email. Now, some people might think GIFs and automated with high first name and changes like that. I think in a marketing sense, you can do some of that stuff. But if you're trying to get a conversation, if you're trying to get a meeting with an opportunity, with a prospect, it's not good enough. And all the numbers speak that way. The numbers are the success rate of automated, personalized email. It's scalable, brilliant, but you lose so much in the process. And I'll walk through these and I'll explain and I'll give you an example of hyper-personalized email. So on the right-hand side is an example. I know it's quite small, but maybe we can pop it up on screen. Is an example of a classic cold outreach campaign. Now, I took this off the internet from a company who does this. There's nothing, I'm not criticizing them. It's a business model, and that's fine. I just don't like that business model generally. And the reason I don't like it is because if you look at the numbers there, it's 1,000 prospects and you get about 4 sales is their estimation of what success looks like, 1,000 prospects. So you go, okay, if 4 sales are worth £25,000, that 4 sales, it's 100 grand. How much does it cost me to send 1,000 emails? Not very much. So we reconcile to ourselves that this is a good thing. The problem is how many people have opted out, unsubscribed, and had a negative experience or an annoying experience from that. And as a result, because of obviously GDPR and data protection, you can now as a company no longer reach out to them. If you're going by the book, of course, which I would encourage you to do. The fines are big if you get in trouble with the ICO. So it's not scalable because the success rate is so low. And some of us here watching might only have 100, 200 people that they're trying to sell to. That might be their target list. Some people might have thousands. But if you've only got a small market to work with, you can't afford to have a success rate of 0.4%. Because there won't be enough data points, there won't be enough prospects to actually achieve a result. So hyper-personalized email is different. First of all, principle number 1, there is no automation. There's no automation. And that's why it's different from classic cold email. But the other reason it's different from classic cold email is because it's so personalized, it's so relevant, they cannot ignore it. So I'll give you an example. We do this with prospects. Very simple strategy you can do. And if you want to chat to Simon, he'll walk you through it. We have a model called the 7 steps, and we use this on LinkedIn to generate appointments and generate conversations and build relationships. But one of the other things that we do with it, because we're big into digital selling and selling through digital channels, whether you're big enterprise or solopreneur, what we do is we prime our prospects using our model on LinkedIn, and we select the ones where we can identify a key need or pain point, and we create a very personalized report based on their business and what we've observed of their business and the opportunities that they're missing. And we highlight that, we screenshot things and send it to the decision maker because that we've built a relationship with on email after building that relationship on LinkedIn. Very simple strategy. You may be thinking at the moment, okay, how easy is it to find data points or information that we can use that helps us get that conversation? It's actually really easy. If you're in the financial sector, you've got accounts, you've got websites, you've got social media presence, you've got profiles. There's loads of data points. It's just constructing them in a way that shows a compelling need to have a conversation. That hyper-personalized email, that interaction on LinkedIn, is not to convince people to buy our product. It's to convince people, it's worth having a talk to that Maverrik. They know a thing or two that could help us. That's all that email, that's all that hyper-personalized email has to do. I know many sales reps say, and business owners even, when they get in front of a prospect, actually their close rate's really good. The biggest challenge they have is getting in front of enough prospects. So with hyper-personalized email, you need to think about it a little bit differently. And maybe all of these tips that I'm going to share with you today, think about it a little bit differently. If your biggest problem is getting a conversation with the right decision maker, don't forget the sale for a minute, because you know that your track record is that you're good at closing things from if you've got a call with somebody. So focus on, how can I create something that creates a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of piquing somebody's interest, that will help them say, do you know what, I'll give them 25 minutes because they've piqued my interest. You don't have to sell your product. When I see a lot of cold email or outreach on email, it says, we do this, we do that, we're wonderful. We've done it for Amazon, we've done it for this company, we've done it for this company, we've done it for this company. Almost like bragging to convince people it's worth a call. If you spin this differently and go, okay, how would we help this company? What would be the challenges that this company has that we know we can fix? And how can we present that in a personalized, relevant way? And, even down to, sometimes we'll analyze individual people's activity on LinkedIn and send it back to the salesperson and say, hey, how are you getting on? Because we spotted a few things that we think if you tweak these things, it could actually massively transform what you're doing. So it's hyper personalized. It can't be duplicated. In fact, we have a member of our team who does 40 of these a week, and we target them and send them to people based on the size of the company and what we think their spend would be in terms of working with us to develop their sales team. So it's not something you do for a £500 product, but it's something you can do to approach prospects in a hyper-personalized way. They can see you've put the time and the research and the effort in, and so they'll give you that time, which creates the opportunity for you to have a conversation and a call. It's different. The benefits of doing that is actually the open rate and the reply rate is insane. So because it's so relevant, because the PowerPoint or presentation you put together is so relevant, the impact is high. And the other interesting thing about it is, if you think about classic cold outreach, you might have to do 7, 8, 9 emails to follow up to get them to respond. With this one, what we found is actually about 25% of the people we send to respond instantly with a yes or a no, and our conversion on a cycle is about 40%, because we spend the time doing it. 25% are responding by the same day. So you shorten your cycle from outreach to call, because you don't have to do as much follow-up and you don't have to hound people in their inboxes or in their emails. So it shortens the deal cycle. Obviously, it increases your conversion success. You don't need automation to do it. Because the conversion and the open rate is so high, you only need to do a few. If you're looking at this and going, I need 10, 15 clients in the next year, you might only need to do a couple of hundred of these tops. Even if you're rubbish at it, you might only need to do a couple of hundred. Yeah? You might have to test a few and get another set of eyes on them to see, sense check it. Does this actually resonate with the right people? Am I speaking to something that's a priority for them? It needs that strategic approach per client. So in other words, imagine you had an elevator ride with your decision maker. This is how you use that personalized email. So you've got as long as it takes to get from the 1st to the 10th floor, but it doesn't mean you go in there without a plan. And so this hyper-personalized email assumes that you have that elevator ride. So, okay, what's the curiosity we can create on that elevator ride that means when they get off on the 10th floor, they say, do you know what? I need to talk to you. So let's set something up. That's simply the way this works. The email itself is just a tool to get the conversation. That's it. So they don't need to hear about how wonderful we are, how many awards we've won, how much seed investment we've raised, how clever our tech stack is. It's all irrelevant. At that point, it's totally irrelevant. What's relevant is, have you piqued that decision maker's interest enough to want to talk to you? And if it doesn't do that, it's a waste of time. So it's brilliant for high value prospects or sales. So if you're targeting higher value stuff, then it's brilliant. Obviously, if you're selling 500 quid trinkets or 500 quid things, you're not going to send thousands of these and spend the time, because it might take you 20 minutes or so to put one of these together. So if it takes you 20 minutes or so to put it together, you might think that's not a good use of my time. Interestingly enough, it's surprising how many people burn through emails because they don't put the time in to build the right email. So that time, 20, 30 minutes to strategize that email for that client could be the difference between a meeting and no meeting. It could be the difference between an unsubscribe or remove me from your database and actually, okay, I'm interested. So webinars is the next one. Now, not the webinars you might think. Now, I've seen a couple of different types of webinar, and I'm going to walk through some. I've seen some webinars that have been done, and again, they're a bit like, look how amazing we are, almost like they're trying to do their Steve Jobs equivalents of a product launch. And the problem is, often what happens when they do the webinars, they're targeted to people who are browsers, they're window shoppers, but they're not buyers. So you'll attract a big name speaker, you'll do all of this stuff, which is good, but the problem is they go away and go, that speaker was good. They don't see the need to have a conversation with you afterwards. They don't see the need for you. And so most of the webinars, often what happens is marketing runs the webinars. And that's, if companies want to do that, that's cool. But where this intersects, and I don't want to steal point 5 here, but where this intersects across social media is the fact that we now have a world where social media has forced marketing and sales into the same space. Email, social media, we're operating in the same space. So if you can collaborate with your marketing department, what you can find is that individual salespeople, business owners, sales departments could target and build a webinar They don't need a big speaker. What they need is marketing's help to collaborate to put together a pain point centric webinar. Now, the advantage of the salespeople being involved is when the follow-up comes, instead of putting people straight into a newsletter, the first option is the salespeople get involved. And the salespeople build the relationships with the people who've attended. That's the key to making a webinar successful. It's not putting people into a newsletter. It's about building that relationship and getting conversations. Albeit, not every one of your webinar attendees is going to be a customer. Not everybody will be in a position to buy. But having that relationship and building that mechanism where people come to the webinar, can engage with your sales team, build that relationship with the sales team, it breaks down a barrier. And some of those people will be ready to buy, some of them will want a proposal, and some of them will remember you, and when it comes up, you'll be their choice because you've added value to their world. But what happens is if we do it as a marketing thing without the salespeople involved, the prospect does not have a relationship with the brand. They have a relationship with people. So one of the things that we do when we give our free resources away, and I'll tell you because I'm doing it now, you'll see it, I'm doing it now. When we do our free resources, we share them, and I say to you, email the email address on screen, and Simon will send it. Simon leads our sales team in London. He's the managing director there. And he's not going to pitch you, they're not going to sell to you, but what they want to do is they want you to remember them, and they want you to have a positive experience interacting with them. So they'll give value, they'll give more tips, they'll explain things in more detail. Why? Because they want you to go away and remember them, so that if you have that need, you know where to come back to. And this is the danger of just dumping people into your email list and not having a personal encounter. Because it's the human-to-human element that makes the sales opportunities move forward. Think about it. If you put somebody into your email list off the back of a webinar, they then click a form, click a button, all that kind of stuff, yeah? And say, oh, I want to schedule a call. Brilliant. They then will book that call and they'll meet somebody on a video call. If that video call doesn't do well, they don't get on, there's no relationship or all that kind of stuff, guess what happens? They go away and they forget you. It didn't fit. So we deliberately encourage people to bring the sales team involved, get them involved. Sometimes the sales team present on the webinars. I know that wouldn't be for everybody. So that people can get to know them, so that when they follow up, they're following up with somebody they've already experienced, already know. So we encourage people, salespeople and marketing teams to work together on the webinars, because one good thing here is the sales team are probably the company's best asset at getting attendees. But what happens, and I'm picking on particular companies I know, but this is very common, is often what happens in companies is the marketing team want the salespeople to do it, and the salespeople don't see what's in it for them. And so they do it as a low priority thing because they've got other things, they've got to chase down deals. What if the marketing team worked together and said, actually, who've you got in terms of leads and targets you want to work on, and how can we build a webinar that would help nudge those people along, that then would help you and help you convert them and build up that conversation and relationship. If you work together like that, you'd be flipping unstoppable. But the salespeople don't see the benefit in the webinar often, not all the time, but sometimes, because it's a marketing thing. And marketing maybe feel apprehensive about involving the sales team into it because they've got enough to deal with and there's enough people talking into the project already. The last thing they need is more people. But if you work together in that way, you could build a webinar, marketing's generating brand and reach and all of that stuff and the metrics that come with that, and salespeople are actually getting their prospects in. But it takes combination because the topic has to be relevant that will help the salespeople. So it's about The value piece is that the salespeople need to get the clients on board or get the prospects there and help the prospects see why they need to talk. So you build your webinars around the need or the pain points. It helps whoever's presenting, and again, don't be afraid, CEOs or business owners or salespeople or marketeers, that you can share things that will add value. Remember, in a business, the salesperson or the marketer or the business owner should be an expert in the customer's challenges and problems around the products or services they sell. Bojana's just asked, will this be recorded? We are recording it. Again, if you want a copy of it, just drop us an email, we'll send it to you. No problem there. Brian says, I'm starting to use some basic automation for intro and connection, but there is too much non-personalized messages. I think salespeople are too busy selling and not trying to hear from their end user on what they need. I agree with you. It's true. And not all of it. I don't want to throw it all on the salespeople or throw salespeople under a bus, but often they've got a pressure to hit a target, and sometimes the pressure to hit the goal can actually cause you to do things that will help you not hit the goal. So if I message more people, I will get more leads. I'll be able to hit my target. And that feels quite productive. The problem is to speed this up, to accelerate it, to do more, you actually end up genericizing and not understanding who you're sending the messages to. If you focus in and drill down, you can actually convert more with less. Less people, more conversion. But you have to spend more time on each individual prospect. People are afraid of doing that because if one fails, what's happened to my pipeline? But actually, there's a sweet spot between these two extreme positions where you could have activity to cultivate interest, webinar, that then you could follow up. And the good thing about a webinar is it scales. It scales. And you can get people there without ads, so there's no big ad budget. You can do it for free. You know, you need a bit of graphic design for the headers and stuff like that and invites. You can reach a much wider audience if you do it in the right way. Like I'm on social media doing this now, and it's open on LinkedIn and it's open on YouTube, so lots of people can see it. So if you're commenting and interacting, please continue to do it, by the way, you're actually amplifying this video. So this video will be educating people who never heard of it, who discovered it, and some of those people will say, I want this worksheet, this will be brilliant. So this is how it works. I'm doing it right now. And we teach and train and help companies implement this on a regular basis. And you see lots of people. On a given month, we put 5,000 people through this in different verticals, in different sectors, different topics. But our sales team are busy building relationships with people, not selling, because we want to understand the problems customers have and if we can fit and if we can solve them. And if we can't, we'll give tips and see them on social. George, podcasting could come under the webinar, but again, you've got to drive traffic to it. So this is where content, I would put, George, podcasting more under content than I would webinars, because webinars have a very specific agenda of converting people into a conversation. Brian, the share button on LinkedIn is disabled for this because if you've registered here, it's a closed loop. But on social, on our YouTube, this is an open broadcast. So webinars, you don't need ads. You don't need a massive audience. You just need to understand your topic that will draw the people who have a need for you. Yeah, and that's a piece of work, again, a bit like the personalized email. It's a piece of work that's so valuable and it will unlock so much in terms of messaging and outreach, as long as you understand the message that triggers people that they need you. And we have an exercise we go through with clients about how they find that. It's not the brand message. We're not talking about the brand message here. We're talking about the sales, the ground troop messages that gets the prospects to bite. And they're different from, say, corporate messaging and things you have to portray to a global audience. These are things that you can do to a vertical or a sector or what have you. So you build the webinar and you design it from the outset to speak to the need and encourage as quickly as possible relationship building. Even if it's not a sale, encourage your salespeople to talk to more people, because it's only out of talking to people that it might be somebody on this webinar goes, you know what, Maverrik, I don't need you for this stuff, but what you said was really helpful and I think it'll be used to this person. So having those relationships is the key. Now, land and expand. Now, this fits in lots of different ways, particularly with webinars, but particularly in lots of different ways. So I'm going to look at two versions of land and expand. One that might be more relevant to smaller businesses and one that might be more relevant to larger businesses. So the principles of land and expand are, and you can use them in lots of different channels and lots of different mechanisms, but the principle is, if I can get a little bite and I can build trust from that little bite, I can grow that relationship. So I'll give you an example. I did a post a couple of days ago on my LinkedIn profile, and I shared a literal step-by-step of how you can generate leads and how I generated 8,000 leads over 12 months from LinkedIn polls. Just one thing generated me 8,000 leads. Now, I walked through, I wrote it all down, I put the screenshots in it, posted a link onto my profile. People have downloaded it. About 250 odd people have downloaded it so far. But guess what? All of those people will be given more value and the option to have a conversation. Land, get them engaged, and expand. And not all of them will be relevant, of course, that's the given, but I'm landing and expanding. And there's various different tools on social media. LinkedIn, for an example, my favorite platform. There's tools on LinkedIn where if you put a PDF onto LinkedIn, if you share a piece of content, you can actually see who's read it. Now, you wouldn't do this for every piece of content, but when you're trying to gauge where your audience up to, and where you're trying to understand the audience a bit better, you can do it to gauge who's listening and who's paying attention. And one of the interesting things about LinkedIn, and I'll come to social media in a minute, one of the interesting things about LinkedIn, particularly with the land and expand that we did, which was a lead magnet almost, but it was plugged into a salesperson. So we plugged a lead magnet into a salesperson. Again, marketing and sales cooperating and working together. Instead of it going to a database, it went to the database, but the immediate notification, LinkedIn was notifying the salesperson, this person's viewed it, 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 this person's viewed it. What does that mean? It means the lead generation is being plugged straight into the salesperson, and the gap between the lead coming in and the salesperson reaching out is shorter. They say, I don't know how true it is, but they say the sweet spot is that you've got to talk to a lead or engage with a lead within 2 days of them downloading something like that. So land and expand, it can be as simple as a lead magnet, some value piece that's gated that they have to raise their hand and say it's relevant. Again, if you build the strategy around the pain that involves, you attract the right people. I've spent lots of time working with companies where we look at what they're doing to generate leads and interest. And what they're doing is they're appealing to buyers who have no intent, people who have no intent. What do I mean by intent? They publish things which are almost like scholar white papers. So they appeal to people who are interested in the topic but don't have a need. So some would say that's tire kickers, but I don't mean tire kickers. I mean people who go, you know what? I'm so interested in this topic, I will download stuff because it's a passionate topic. But there's a different group of people who go, actually, I'm not interested in reading all of that stuff. I just want to figure out how I solve this issue. And so there's two types of content that you can use. There's the thought leadership content, which is good to establish your brand and your profile. But if you want to attract the right people through a land and expand with a lead magnet, plug it into the salesperson so that the salesperson's got a flow of leads every day, every week, whatever, that they can turn on or off themselves because they can just repost on social media and get more. But the key is making sure that you map, if this is what they need to buy or buy into, what's the things and the topics that will help us understand and attract the people with that need, with that pain, with that challenge. So there's a piece of work there that if you do it well, you can build various different pieces of content that actually all lead to they need your product, they need your service. So that's the free land and expand, which generates leads. There's also the paid land and expand. Now this is used by actually some very big corporates, and it's actually part of the business models of some big enterprises today. So what they will do is a freemium version, that's one model, or some companies will have a diagnostic or something where it's attached to your product or service, but it's standalone. And it's a low value offer that you can put out to clients or to prospects that they can latch onto, they can pay some money, low value. You know, if you're selling a £100,000 thing, it might be £10,000. If you're selling a £10,000 thing, it might be £1,000, something like that. But you'd use that to build the relationship and expand the client relationship. I'll give you an example. One of our clients, we did a land and expand product, it was £200. 3 months later, they'd spent £18,000. 6 months later, they'd spent £100,000. Why? We landed and expanded the relationship. And many times what you can find is that you can bypass a lot of the bureaucracy that comes into the sales process by using that method, because you're tried, you're tested, you're trusted. So land and expand. I'll give you one more example. An SME IT company doing about £3 million a year. They were struggling to get into some of the companies that they wanted to get to because they had contracts in place with other providers. And so what happened was they were in this kind of waiting game where they knew the contract was up in a couple of months or a couple of years or 18 months or whatever it was. The decision maker had told them that they weren't looking at it till then. But how do you then continue and engage that relationship knowing that they've told you it's not till... The expectation was the decision maker would be left alone until later in that later in the year or whenever it was. The problem with that is you're sat there and you're going, I know full well they're going to have forgotten me by then. I'll be back to square one. So a land and expand product, we help them strategize and build. And this land and expand product was based on an analysis of some of the common problems that were happening in managed service IT. And so what they did is they offered a third-party assessment tool. It had to be paid for, and the assessment tool was relatively low cost, but it was a sense check for the company that they could come in, and in that sense check you could expose, diagnose and show them how they could improve various elements of their managed services process. So they'd sell these, go in, and effectively they're being paid to show them where they're being let down or where there's things that they wouldn't do. So it's a really simple way. It's a simple way to sell because it gives your sales team something fixed and tangible to sell. They can say, if you've got this problem or if these issues are coming up, this is something we can sell. And it's almost a piece of consultancy work, and it's worked in a lot of SMEs, but some big corporates use this model. They have a built-out product, knowing full well that that built-out product is just a stepping stone to their full service offering. So it's a great way to leverage new opportunities that might be gated for the main product or service. But you know, once you're tested you're tried, tested and trusted, you actually can get through that and expand the relationship. I've terribly spelled outmaneuver wrong here. I've just spotted this. But you can outmaneuver your competition because you can design a product or service that tacks into the vulnerabilities of your competitor. So where your competitor is vulnerable, you could tack in a service that just creates an opportunity to get your foot in the door. Salespeople have been using similar things to this for many years, saying, can we set up an agreement where we could be your backup? If there's a supply chain failure or something, could we be your backup? And there's no cost to it, or there's a low cost to it, but we're your backup and we can come in and resolve the issues or do X, Y, or Z as your backup. They sell themselves as the backup to create the relationship, to be tried, tested, trusted, and then you can expand the relationship. We use something we call the intent framework. And again, I don't have a lot of time to get through this today, but the intent framework is understanding the level of pain that people are in. So one of the challenges, particularly for salespeople, is a lot of their customers, or prospects, if they approach them, they'll find that, oh, we don't need that. Now, as a salesperson, you know full well that they need it because you understand the product and you understand where they're at. But their instant answer is, we don't need that. So what we do is we teach an intent framework where it helps you to understand how you touch the pain that the customer might be in. How do you find that point that you can open an opportunity? And that can be used on social media, it can be used in email, it can be used in phone conversations, it can be used in meetings as a way to gauge people's intent and attract the right people who are feeling those issues. So it helps the salespeople to be more targeted in how they outreach. So land and expand the free version and the paid version as a service. And it allows you to use things like lead magnets to capture an audience, but you have to map it to your services and what you're going to deliver. Social selling, one of my favorites, massively underestimated. And it's underestimated because people are not thinking through what they're trying to do. What we're trying to do, LinkedIn, wherever it is, Instagram, Twitter, we're trying to build relationships. Relationships are the best way to get through a door and have a conversation. It's much easier to do that than try and hit the notes, as I would call it, of asking people questions and hoping that that's the right thing at the right moment. The success rate of hitting people just at the right moment, at the right time, at the right time of day. In other words, is it the right time for your product or service? Is it the right message? And is it the right time of day for them to get the message? There's too many variables for you to do that consistently. So one of the things that we teach people to do is build relationships. Now, I'm going to walk through how you can do that across multi-channel for social selling. And I'm going to kind of put a different spin on what maybe cold callers should do. And again, in some of our programs, we help people understand how they can build this process. So, social selling, hands down, the obvious thing is you can build relationships with people that, and you can find people that weren't on your radar. Yeah. So you might be targeting these companies, but suddenly you go to LinkedIn, do some searches on Sales Navigator, and you discover that actually you've found 10 more companies or 5 more companies or 25 more decision makers that actually are perfect for you too. So social selling, building that relationship, it opens doors, it's highly successful. But there's also an element of social media and social selling that is underestimated or missed. So I'll walk you through one of the common LinkedIn tactics. It's not very successful, but it's done by many. So the number one is the cold call. So what happens is you send a connection request to somebody, they accept, and within as quickly as you can, you cold call them. Yeah, I've had that. I'm sure you've had some of that. It's not good. It's not healthy. It's weird. Yeah. Hi, I'm just calling you, connecting on LinkedIn. It's not good. So that's the first one. The second one is, and I actually used to do this about 3-4 years ago. was you connect with somebody on LinkedIn and immediately email them. Yeah, again, pretty intense with a pitch. What you can do is use social media. We have a method of doing this, we call it the 7 steps, where you prime those prospects. So if you think I'm going to make a cold call to XYZ and I'm going to make the call next Thursday or next month, you can prime your prospects, build those relationships so that when you do make that call, when you do reach out by email, they're more receptive to you because they know you, they're aware of you, and there's some degree of rapport that you've built on the platform. I don't buy this logic of, I just want to find out if they need me and move on. I think it's rubbish. What it is it's a substitute for laziness. It's a substitute for going, actually, I know full well we can help. This is our addressable market. And I only want to focus on the people who are easy. That's what this is when people do this. I want to find the easy people. The problem is that the more you do that, the harder it gets because you're picking all the low-hanging fruit all the time. So social media can be used to prime your prospects in advance of when you want to reach out to them. So if you want to reach out to them, let's work backwards and go, okay, we're a couple of weeks out, let's go and try and invest in this relationship and prime the prospects so that when we do reach out by email, maybe with a hyper-personalized or maybe with a call, actually it's not as frosty, it's not as unfamiliar, it's not as weird. So social media can be used as a priming channel for another method of outreach. The other thing is it can build your thought leadership, build your influence on a platform or in a digital space, and so people come to you. Hence why I said with the polls, the post I did a few days ago, I did a step-by-step guide on how to generate leads through polls on LinkedIn. So people will come and download that and engage with me and go, that Dean knows what he's talking about. That Dean seems to got his stuff together, and they swore then. So social selling has lots of applications and it can fit into another process and complement another process. So when we talk to companies, myself and Simon will sit down with them and say, what do you want to achieve? What's the lead volume you need? What's the processes you're already doing? What's working, what's not? And how can this social selling piece fit to solve some of the bits that you're maybe a little bit weak on? And leave the stuff that's working alone and just work on what's not working so well or what you've struggled to get to work. Final one, and again, if you want the PDF, I'll put the PDF on screen. Content marketing is massively underrated for the salesperson. Often what happens is companies produce content and they tell the salespeople to just churn it out, share it, share it, share it. But a lot of the content is pulling people to the brand. Now, I'm not attacking marketers because you do an amazing job and usually you have to do it on shoestring budgets. But what happens is the traffic from that comes to the website, and if the website isn't converting inquiries, there's something wrong. But if you empower your salespeople and resource your salespeople with content that speaks to the challenges of the market, they attract the attention of people, and salespeople listen to this, I don't want to post stuff and all that stuff. I just want to make sales. I just want to hit the phone. If you invested in your LinkedIn I'll just use LinkedIn as an example. If you invested in your own LinkedIn profile and committed to start talking to the industry and to your target industry, not your industry you're in, the target industries, about the challenges that you know you can help with, two things happen. Number one, your elevation and standing with your prospects increases. Your influence with those people increases. Number one. Number two, when you build this platform, and I said to somebody earlier, we were talking to somebody earlier on a call about their LinkedIn presence. And I said, what you've got to think about is, if you think about the whole thing with the metaverse coming that we can't quite understand, your social media profile or company page is an asset. It's an asset. There are people right now generating a lot of money from influencing millions of people with a profile or a page. Now, I'm not saying salespeople become social media influencers. What I'm saying is you might have 100, 200, 500, 1,000 prospects. If you're building a relationships and influencing through content, it's going to elevate your standing with them, increase your trust with them. And I've got clients who've not met me, and I've said, I feel like I know you because I've seen you on YouTube, I've seen you on LinkedIn, and I feel like I know you, but we've never actually met. Now, I'm not saying you go all in and forget your sales duties, but if you do it, it will complement and it will reduce the friction in your sales. You'll drive more leads, you'll learn how to generate leads, you'll learn how to get people to bite. But the second point, and this is where the business owners might not like it, salespeople, if you do this, we don't have jobs for life these days, and often salespeople move around every 3 to 5 years. If you elevate your profile in this way, you'll find that people will have more confidence when they're interviewing you, when they're trying to recruit you. They'll have more confidence in what you do because they'll see what you've done. Recruiters vet people by their LinkedIn profile. Prospects vet people by their LinkedIn profile. It will massively improve. If you get your profile optimized so you present yourself, you fill it with the content that talks to the challenges of your customer, and you get out there, you will get visible. Sometimes uncomfortably visible. One of the big niggles, and I'll just share this with you, one of the big niggles in some of the things we do, and if Simon's in the chat, he can... Isaac, yes, I will in 1 second. Isaac's just asked for a question on the process. Isaac, I'll come to your question in a minute. One of the things, one of the little niggles when we teach companies and individuals to implement social selling is because they start speaking to an audience in a very relevant way, and they start to do it in the way that works both on the platform, but also with the people, because it's all about human beings in the end. It's technology and human beings. The technology controls the distribution, and the human beings decide how much the technology distributes it. So when you start thinking about that, you go, okay, so we implement social selling and content marketing that channels leads and opportunities and relationships to the salesperson. It becomes uncomfortable for the salesperson, people sometimes, because they become so visible, they have some uni mates who know them really well suddenly start WhatsApping them saying, have you got nothing better to do? In fact, I've worked with a company recently and they were getting mocked by some of their competitors because some of their salespeople were on LinkedIn quite a lot posting and all this stuff. And there was a joke going around that they got nothing to do, they weren't selling anything because they were all playing around on, playing around on LinkedIn. Meanwhile, that sales team were building influence with the target clients that competitor had. That's what they were doing. But it looked on the face of it, they were wasting their time to the competition, but they were influencing their customers and generating relationships and inbound opportunities. So these are the 5 strategies I would encourage you to implement. Isaac, I'll give you a brief overview. Isaac's question, maybe we can pop it up on screen. Isaac's asked the question of, can you give an example of a process of social selling? What content to interact with, what to comment on, and how often to like someone's comment? When is the effective to make first contact? When will I need to build my network first to effective? I can't see the rest of the question there. Effectively do this. Right. So that's a big question, Isaac, and I've got 8 minutes, so I'm going to try. The first thing I do is I think about how many sales opportunities do I need in the next 12 months and where are they going to come from? Because the longer I have to build relationships, the better it will be. So somebody starting social selling right now will, bluntly, find it a bit tough for a few weeks. It's tough, yeah? Because you're building something from scratch. Like you took 4 weeks off, 5 weeks off, 10 weeks off work, and you come back and you've got to build a new pipeline. Same thing. So I'd look at, okay, how many people do I need for my sales for the next year? And I would be building my relationships and getting connected to people, even if I'm not ready to sell to them yet, so that they can be influenced through my posting and my content and get to know me. The longer I have, the easier it is. So that's the first thing. So I'm growing my network, and then I'm engaging the network. And we have a map. And again, Simon, I've not planned this because somebody's asked the question. If you want a copy of our social selling tracker, email Simon at london@maverrik.io and he'll send you a copy. And if you need help walking through it, he'll jump on a call and walk you through how it works. So Simon will send you that because there's steps. So we call it the 7 steps. And basically it's based off human behavior. You need about 6 to 7 interactions to get to a decent conversation. 6 to 7. And so there's a stage of different interactions over a period. Now the danger for you is if you do them too quickly, it looks too intense. If you do them too slowly, people forget you. So the key is to do them, and I'd say that what you need to focus on is every 3 to 4 days, you should be interacting with your prospect. And Isaac mentioned there about liking, actually commenting, meaningfully commenting on a prospect's content is far better. But there are other ways to engage with a prospect and elicit responses and elicit engagement, not just liking and commenting. So the 7 steps are about actions to go from this person does not know me to this person knows me and we're starting the conversation. And I'll give you an indication. One of our team, we recruit account managers to help people implement social selling, whether it's done with or train or what have you. And it takes them roughly about a month to get really up to speed and really 3 months to be flying, absolutely flying. The honest reality is a lot of people quit before they get to the result because they go, it didn't work today, so I'm giving up. It didn't work next day, so I'm giving up. It actually is a process. It's a journey you take people on. And I find now, so my LinkedIn, I do this every day. Every single day I'm doing this all day. Well, not all day, but every single day. The problem I have is keeping up with the inbound coming back. So I have 2 other people who sit with me and help me deal with the influx that comes back. So it is about building that process. And salespeople are relationship people. Yeah, that's the simple nature of it. So when we come to some of these things I've talked about today, they don't feel very relationship driven, but the end result of them is relationship and conversation. Albeit there's a route to get that. And some of them will take longer, some will take shorter, but they're all sustainable and they're all something, whether you're a company with 1 employee or you're a company with 10,000, will work either at an individual level or a corporate level. But you have to understand the pain points and leverage the pain points in the right way. If you don't leverage in the right way, you will miss the mark. So content marketing is brilliant. So any more questions before we sign off? Any more questions? Yeah, Brian. Brian's come back. Any more questions for today's session? I've obviously had to race through it. We only have an hour. I'm trying to keep them short. Simon's happy to send this book to you, so email it. We'll email it to you. It pads it out. And if there's questions, Simon also is keen to answer them. Build a relationship. He's not going to try and ram a product down your throat. That's not how we work. We'll help. And the good thing is if we help you for free, maybe you'll come back and do some business with us. If you don't, you're going to tell somebody else, these guys are quite good. Maybe you should watch some of their sessions. One other thing, by the way, we run these sessions every week, 2 p.m. on Thursdays. So you can go onto our events, wherever you're watching, and you can check, that one's useful for me, that one's useful for me. That one, not so much, but you can pick. So any more questions before I wrap up today? Going once, going twice, sold. Please do go and implement these strategies. They will make a massive difference to you and they're easy to implement. You just have to do the research to understand your customers better. Once you've done that, These work, and they can be scaled and they can be repeated, and you don't need to keep juggling around to different hacks. I need this week, this next week. All of these or one of these will hit your targets for you. So thank you so much for joining us. If you've got value from this, please do tell other people, do all the likes, the follows, the thumbs up, all that stuff. We'll be back next week for another session. You can register on LinkedIn, or you can go to Eventbrite and register as well. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you on social or on the next session.
Maverik's Momentum program is tailored to your sales team's goals and KPIs. The program encourages new behaviors that become ingrained in your sales team's sales process. Each participant will be able to demonstrate industry knowledge, build relationships, and sell on value through digital channels with confidence. Momentum takes a 3-stage approach: auditing the team's capabilities, reviewing existing profiles, KPIs, and goals. Then, together, create a program roadmap for success. We implement this roadmap in Stage 2 within the Early Adopter program, with coaching on demand, individual action plans, and training workshops for a selection of your team, including full access to our digital tutorial library and weekly sprint sessions, leading into the full program launch. This is where we integrate the learning, experience, and outcomes from the Early Adopter program into a rolling 90-day enablement program provided to the entire sales force. Over time, this playbook will be refined and enhanced for customized frameworks and best practices. This final stage can be customized to suit your sales team's requirements. Now is the time to schedule your discovery call and empower your team to social sell.